today on the Common Sense Club, and he's got in a show, and as usual, you're not going to want to miss a minute because we have a lot of important topics to tackle. One of which is the Obama administration handling of this activist, Chen, now making pleas to the U.S. Congress. What's happening here? Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, joins us to discuss this crisis over the Chinese dissident, again, seeking asylum, and a few other things on the foreign policy front. Ambassador Bolton, nice to have you back. How are you?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
So, give me the. Let's start with a story. Give me your narrative on Chen.
Well, this was very badly bungled by the State Department from start to finish. I mean, from the decision to bring him into the embassy, which was the right decision, but which dramatically escalated the clash with China, and therefore put Chen in very grave danger when he was released from the embassy a couple of days ago, to the notion that they would accept Chinese guarantees of his safety and that he'd be allowed to study in peace and so on. Now, there's a lot of talk, even as we speak, that there may be some kind of deal now to get him out of the country and into the United States, which would be a very good thing, I think, for Chen and his family if that eventuates. But I tell you, this was something that could have turned out to be much more serious. And let's be clear, he's not yet out of the country. That's for sure.
Now, for folks that have not been following this, the blind Chinese activist we're talking about, he was under house arrest for about 18 months until he escaped a couple of weeks ago. He was protesting how the Chinese were enforcing the one couple, one child policy, forced abortions, basically. And, Rich Galen at Mullings.com made a comment about that. He said, it doesn't matter whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, abortion forced upon a woman by the state is abhorrent. And so anyway, we'll come back to that in a second. But about 10 days ago, he scales this high wall surrounding his home under house arrest and hightails it to the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, about 400 miles away. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton coming, Geithner coming for these high-level meetings. By the way, Ambassador Bolton, this guy's smart enough to know this is the time to scale the wall and insert myself into these visits? I mean, is that what was going on?
Well, there's so much that we don't know, and we still need to have it come out. But I have a feeling that he must have figured that his maximum possibility for leverage would come with the Secretary of State and Secretary of Treasury about to blow into Beijing, and that's why he made this escape where he was injured and tried to make his way to Beijing. But I think the way in which the U.S. government handled it really increased the risk to Chen and his family. It really provoked the confrontation, and it just showed overall a kind of amateur hour. It may or may not be resolved now, but I think the whole process showed real weakness on the part of the United States. It sent a bad signal to the Chinese government. It sent a bad signal to other Chinese dissidents. If this is what's going to happen to you when you come to the U.S. Embassy, that I think they will find very discouraging. So I think Congress has a lot to look at here in terms of how this played out. Even if it ends well, and, we can all keep our fingers crossed that it will, it wasn't because of the State Department's efforts. It was despite them.
Yeah, and the worst of it, I understand, is that he was offered the ability to go to the hospital, sort of the way to stand down this crisis, get out of the embassy, go to the hospital, get treated for the foot that happened when he escaped. And he was told that he'd be in the company of U.S. Embassy personnel at the hospital. But when he gets there, he's no longer with any U.S. Embassy personnel. He's in the company of Chinese security personnel. I mean, do we know enough to know that that was sort of our way of saying, hey, you're hot potato, not ours?
Well, if we didn't understand that, we should have. He injured his foot. So when he was taken to the hospital about 3 days ago, that doesn't mean you're still there, but he is, which shows he's in custody. He's not just in a hospital, and that means he's under the control of the Chinese government. Now you say, well, after they've got control, why is there even a possibility they would let him out of the country? All I can say is they may conclude that it's better to have him abroad never to come back to China. Let's be clear about that. Than to keep him in the country and risk that the media will continue to follow him. I'll still be surprised if he gets out of the country. I hope I'm wrong on that, but as I say, it was not due to the U.S. efforts that might happen, but essentially in spite of them.
Let's talk about this one couple, one child policy for a minute, and forced abortions. Do we spend enough time, in your view, as a free country, showcasing, highlighting, exposing, discussing the brutality of the Chinese in many of these areas?
Well, I don't think we do, and I think that's one reason why this dissident Chen was so significant. As you pointed out, he's been bringing lawsuits on behalf of women who have been forced to undergo sterilization and abortion. It's a very, very contentious subject in China, since it goes right to the core of what families are able to do, and it's having enormous destabilizing impacts in China. It's creating a generation, because in China they value boy babies more than girl babies. They're aborting girl babies. So you've got tens of millions of marriage-age Chinese men who have no choice of no chance of ever getting married. And if you want to talk about social instability, let's talk about that. So when you have this dissident who has been in the past few years highlighting this terrible policy, it's no wonder the Chinese are sensitive about it.
Only a couple of minutes left, but I want to know if John Bolton were Secretary of State, which is a good thought in my mind, how would this have been better handled by our government?
Well, I think you need to think all this through a lot more carefully from the beginning. As I say, I thought it was the right decision to bring Chen into the embassy. You know, if he had tried to walk up to it on his own, he never would have made it through the Chinese security guards. But we should have recognized that once we did that, we were escalating the conflict, and we should have been prepared to see it through. So by backing down and finding a face-saving way for the Chinese to take control of him again, we just sent a very, very bad signal to the dissidents and the Chinese government alike. And there's no doubt that the State Department understood they had made a mistake. Even if there's a deal today, this was not part of some subtle process. The State Department's been in the panic mode the past couple days because they know how badly they've screwed up.
But how does this end? I mean, how do we take his cause and what we stand for, and how do you see this thing ending?
Well, I think people need to have a better understanding of what the one-child-per-family policy is. It's not, some benign population policy because of excessive growth in the population. It is a brutal way for the Chinese state to interfere in people's lives. And, if nothing else, I hope it will make Americans more aware of the kind of government we're dealing with in China.
Yeah, and that conversation needs to happen. No question about it. Going to be fascinating to watch. Well, big story. We want to get your take on it. We'll save Afghanistan and the president spiking the football for another day, but always a pleasure to get your take.
There.
Yeah, exactly right. He'll be spiking that football all the way to November. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a good weekend.